It has been over 35 years since the original Beetlejuice hit theaters and was a massive success, being one of the most influential comedy horror films and is still popular today. And now that we finally have a sequel towards it, does it live up to the original film? Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is co-produced and directed by Tim Burton, as the film stars Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is already on track to be the third biggest opening weekend of 2024 after the summer's Deadpool & Wolverine and Inside Out 2. People are very excited for this movie, and one of the biggest reasons why is because you got Tim Burton back on board directing this sequel, and the trailers for this film did look pretty good, as it looked exactly like you would expect a Beetlejuice sequel to look, especially when this movie promised a lot of practical effects and great production design and all the things that you love from that original film. So now that it's finally here, does it hold up? I would say if you're comparing to the original film, of course it's not. I mean, most sequels aren't going to be as good as the first one, but I do think this is still a really solid movie, and I think for fans that wanting that nostalgia and those references, you definitely get in this movie, and I do think it is still a very enjoyable movie, even with the many issues that it has. Let's just dive right into the positives first, and I have to start with the performances here, as Michael Keaton once again plays Beetlejuice, and he also steals the show again. But what I love so much about his performance is that he still feels like the character, and Michael Keaton's around 70 years old, which is actually pretty insane because his performance does not show that in any way possible, and he is a blast to watch every single time he's on screen. Tim Burton decided once again to not have this movie have Beetlejuice in every single part of this movie, as he's maybe in it just a little bit more than the original film, but this movie is also longer. Beetlejuice as a character is pretty funny and hilarious, but if he was in the movie for way too long, I think the movie would not be as good. He would probably get our nerves after a while. Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara are back in this sequel, and I also thought that they were really good in this movie. Their performances are very convincing. You feel like they are the characters from the original film, and I really enjoy their dynamic in this movie, with the characters having a little bit of a different relationship than that first film. Everybody else in this movie is really good as well, like Justin Theroux, even though his character is terrible and didn't really work for this movie at all, as well as Jenna Ortega, who feels like she's sidelined in this movie, even though she's like a really big star right now. And one of my favorite actors of all time, Willem Dafoe, is great in this movie. I love when he is able to just given something weird to do, because he excels at that. He is an amazing actor. Easily my favorite aspect about this film has got to be the art direction and the visual effects, as all of it looks really, really awesome in this movie. The budget for this film is over $100 million, which is a significant increase from the original film, but this movie decides to use practical effects and to have really good production design and not to rely on green screen. This movie looks really, really good in those areas, especially the afterlife, which we get more of in this film, and all of the cool and zany characters that feels like your classic Tim Burton movie. All those moments in the afterlife were easily my favorite aspects about this movie, because it was just so much more creativity. I'm so glad that this movie was still able to embrace the comedy horror aspect, and that there is a ton of really creepy stuff in this movie that obviously is just played for laughs, but there are some very violent moments in this movie that I was very impressed by, considering that it all looks real, really entertaining to watch, especially this one character that just shows up and just goes on this little killing spree with blood everywhere. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's probably gonna get leaked all over the internet. I thought all of that looked really good. Danny Elfman returns from the original film to score this movie, and I thought it was really good. Maybe not as iconic as the original Beetlejuice film, but I found the score in this movie to be really good and added to many of the intense or exciting moments of this movie. And I mean, it's something you would expect because Danny Elfman's one of the best composers of all time. As much as I really enjoyed this movie, this film also has a ton of negatives here, and a lot of the ones that people have been talking all over the internet among the critics and audience is with the writing, and that there are way too many characters and too many subplots that don't all feel fleshed out. All of these ideas could have really worked in their own movie or in a limited series, but they're all crammed in together, and it makes the movie feel like a bloated mess, especially when the movie opens up with a character played by Monica Bellucci, which was a fantastic opening, and I was so excited to see what they do with this character, and ultimately she doesn't do anything. The only thing that would change would be all the convenient plot devices that this movie decides to do for characters to get out of a situation because of this plot device. It just feels like that's the only reason why she's written into this film, because she doesn't really do anything. There's also a subplot with Jenna Ortega's character that happens in the middle of the film that was pretty obvious. I didn't catch it right away. I found it to be very predictable and stupid and just goes exactly the way that you think it's gonna go, and it wasn't really all that entertaining, and it just ends off being a super easy, barely inconvenience type of moment. And the other massive issue with the writing is a lot of the dialogue in this movie, where it just feels so basic and constrained by the studio, where it just feels so easy because they know they're gonna make a lot of money, and if they ever decide to do a third movie, then maybe they can get a little more interesting with these ideas. But there's just so many references and Easter eggs and nostalgia, and as somebody who doesn't have nostalgia for Beetlejuice, these were very obvious, and it definitely was very distracting while watching this movie. The movie felt very boring and very dull for quite a bit of it, until the third act of the movie that was just so bonkers and weird, and that's when the movie got really entertaining. Overall, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is another solid, fun legacy sequel that I'm sure is going to be very review proof, as the opening weekend numbers indicate that this is going to be a massive box office hit, and that people are just going to go see this no matter what the critics say, because they're super excited to see one of their most beloved movies finally get a sequel. I do think a lot of this movie really works here, and love having Michael Keaton back as the titular character of Beetlejuice, with the awesome practical effects and the production design and Danny Elfman's music. But with all the issues that this movie has, it does feel like it's a very safe movie for a wide audience. And it may sound like I was being a little too harsh on some of these criticisms for this film. I actually read the leaked script of Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian, which was supposed to be the original sequel, and it is a lot better than this movie. It's really weird and zany. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I thought it was completely original, and I think it would have been such a much better movie. It may have not done well financially, but I think people would have really enjoyed it, especially all these years later. So reading that script and learning about all of the potential Beetlejuice sequel ideas that they had all those years ago, and then this is the movie we get now, it definitely feels more constrained from a studio perspective like Warner Brothers Pictures, and it definitely lessens my enjoyment of this film. But again, I still enjoyed it. I am giving Beetlejuice Beetlejuice a 6 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. As I want to know below in the comment section, have you seen Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? And let me know all of your spoiler-free thoughts. I would love to hear all about it. Before you guys check out this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like as you always should, and ring that notification bell so I can see you all in a brand new video. And I will see you guys at the movies.